Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking on a story that, on the surface, feels like this really sensational, old-timey London crime spree.
It does, but when you really get into the source material, you find it's something else entirely. It's a deeply personal and tragic story about the human cost of revolution.
Right. About exile, idealism, and what happens when you're just, fighting to survive.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack this really harrowing journey of a small group of Latvian Jewish refugees. They were fleeing persecution from the Tsar.
And they end up in London only to become, instantly infamous. The British press labels them alien criminals.
The ultimate alien criminals. And this whole saga, it really centers around two people. A young woman named Rivka Bermansfelt and a philosophical artist and bomb maker who the world would come to know as Peter the Painter.
Peter the Painter. Even the name is legendary. But to really get this story, to understand the sheer intensity of this group, they called themselves Liesma, the Flame, we have to start at the root of it all, don't we?
We absolutely do. The root is their trauma. It's the harsh reality of Russian persecution back in Latvia, or Courland as it was known then, under the Tsar.
So this was a place where, the local culture was being systematically erased?
Erased, stripped of language, rights, dignity. And for the Jewish population, it was all of that, but compounded. It created this profound, desperate sense of statelessness.
And the sources mentioned this kind of thread running through Rivka's family specifically, this idea that the Bermansfelt line was, what was the phrase?
Crazy in the blood.
Crazy in the blood. I mean, that's fascinating. It's like this generational response to oppression, right? The idea that just wanting to be treated as an equal was seen as a form of madness.
It's the fuel, absolutely. The characters we're about to meet, they aren't driven by some, dry ideology from a book. They're driven by a need to fix a century of injustice. That so-called madness is what drove them from one empire's fist right into another.
From the Tsar to the unforgiving, gaslit alleys of London's East End.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And the spark that really lights that fire. It wasn't a bomb. It started, funnily enough, with a clock.
Okay, let's start there. The clockmaker's rage.
So Rivka's foundational trauma is all tied up with her father, Mordechai. He was the village clockmaker. And his story is tied to this local Russian garrison commander, a Colonel Y.M. Orlov.
And Orlov wasn't your typical run-of-the-mill bad guy. The sources describe him as having this sort of creative malice.
That's a perfect way to put it. It went beyond just oppression. So Orlov commissions Mordechai to build him this magnificent clock, a Louis XIV-style mantle clock.
And this wasn't just a simple job, was it?
Not at all. Mordecai spent 5 grueling months on it. 5 months. This was his art, brass, enamel, glass, imported wood. It was his skill, his patience, everything poured into this one beautiful, enduring object.
In a world that was trying to make everything ugly and temporary.
And that's exactly what Orlov wanted to destroy. So Mordechai finishes the clock, delivers it, and he's waiting for that sense of completion, But Orlov, he follows him home.
Right into their house.
Bursts in while they're having dinner. He's carrying the clock, this magnificent creation just crudely bundled in a burlap sack. And he doesn't just refuse to pay.
This is the part that's sheer brutality.
He takes his heavy Russian rifle butt and smashes the clock to splinters right there on their floor. 5 months of work, gone in an instant.
And the reason he gives?
The reason is the most chilling part. He says, it ticks so loud it even keeps the maid awake.
Wow.
It's an excuse designed to say, you are nothing, your work is nothing, your life is nothing. It was about stripping him not just of his pay, but of his entire sense of self-worth.
And that humiliation, that rage?
Yeah.
That's the trigger.
That's the trigger. It sends Mordechai into this spiral of hopelessness, and he decides he has to strike back, to make himself equal, as the source puts it.
Which brings us to the moment that changes everything for Rivka.
Yes. One night, on the Tulsan Road, Rivka finds her father. He's trying to anchor a heavy rope across the road, hiding behind a milestone.
A desperate ambush.
A completely mad, suicidal ambush. He's hoping to trip up maybe 1 or 2 of the Russian cavalrymen who patrolled that road.
And Rivka tries to stop him.
She does. She's in this awful physical struggle with her own father, pulling at the rope, scraping her hands raw, just trying to pull him back from the brink.
But they're seen.
A single rider approaches too soon. The ambush fails completely, but the intent is obvious. Mordechai is caught.
And the consequences are immediate.
Instant and catastrophic. Mordechai is thrown in prison, and Rivka, who's barely a teenager, is now officially an accomplice in the attempted murder of a Russian cavalry officer.
An enemy of the state. Just like that.
In a quarter of an hour, her life is over. She has to run. She flees to Tolson, to her cousin Jenkel's print shop.
A printer. That's convenient.
Very. He risks everything, forges her papers, and slips her out of the country.
Yeah.
And that's the bridge. That one act of family loyalty takes her from rural Latvia
To the total, overwhelming chaos of the London docks.
Tilbury docks. And she is immediately vulnerable, disoriented, alone, and prey.
She's approached by a man, Marx, was it? From the Hebrew Ladies Protective Society. Sounds official.
It sounds official, but the reality of the East End was brutal. As he's trying to take her to a shelter, this other guy, a ruffian, a crimp, steps in.
And he lays it out for her?
No minced words. He tells her straight, Marx will sell you to men for 2 shillings a time. The docks were a feeding ground.
So even the people who are supposed to be helping are
part of the machine. The crimp actually kicks Marx in the ribs, just drops him right there. And what Rivka learns instantly is that authority here is just as flimsy as it was back home. Here, it's Jews preying on other Jews.
It's Yoska Sokolov, the watchmaker, who ends up guiding her, right?
Yeah.
He gets her into the city proper.
Yes. And as he's leading her through the markets and the noise, she sees something on Commercial Road that just stops her in her tracks.
The English gentleman.
The frock-coated gents, and she's mesmerized by their steady steps. They walk with no fear. They have this implicit understanding that they belong, that they're backed by this invincible authority.
And just a mile away from them
Is her world, the desperate scramble of refugees. And she sees that chasm between them. That's the gap the Liesma group believed they could close with dynamite and bullets.
So she's in London. She's survived the arrival. Where does she go from there?
She needs an anchor. And she finds one in a man named Charles Perelman. He becomes her landlord, her protector, her guide to this maze.
And Perelman is quite a character.
Oh, he's a total character. A photographer, a collector, a self-proclaimed expert in getting out of trouble. He has this incredibly theatrical air about him, always winking, hinting at grand conspiracies.
The sources say he used to boast about the Rothschilds buying his paintings.
You're right. And telling these elaborate stories about them rescuing him from imaginary czarist prisons. He just loved the drama. But underneath all that,
He was sharp.
extremely sharp. He knew the real dangers. And he gives Rivka a very specific warning. He says, be on guard around Gardstein's gang.
Gardstein. That's Karl, the leader of Liesma.
That's Karl. And what Rivka doesn't know is that Perelman is secretly playing both sides. He's using his own contacts inside the Metropolitan Police to protect fugitives like her. He's a cynic, but a survivor.
And the heart of this whole revolutionary scene, it wasn't some secret cellar, was it? It was a restaurant.
Scheinblum's restaurant in Sclater Street. It was the unofficial headquarters of the Anarchist Club, and it was less a club and more a pressure cooker.
The sources described the smell. Tobacco, cheap booze.
And the gases of political argument. Every single radical faction was there, all yelling at once. Marxists, anarcho-communists, Christian socialists.
And scientific illegalists. I had to stop there. What on earth is a scientific illegal?
It's a fantastic term, isn't it? It's crucial, actually. For them, crime, specifically organized robbery, wasn't just theft. It was a logical, scientific step toward funding the revolution.
So they're not just criminals. They're redirecting capital.
Exactly. They're taking it from the bourgeoisie and moving it toward its higher purpose, global revolution. It gave them a complete ideological justification for what they were doing.
And nestled in this loud, chaotic restaurant is the Liesma group, the Flame.
The Flame, a small, dedicated cell, and they're the ones really pushing this idea of illegalism to fund the fight back in Latvia.
So let's meet the key players, starting with the leader, Karl, also known as George Gardstein.
Real name, Pulaski Morantsev. He was an ex-circus acrobat, used his skills to escape from Riga Central Prison. Perelman described him as a raving beauty, but with a sledgehammer behind his back.
And his real talent was management, right? Keeping this volatile group together.
He was the glue, constantly settling fights between the others. He saw Liesma as the flame under history's boiler, convinced that their will alone could bring about revolution.
And then there's Nina, his partner.
His de facto partner and the group's ideological core. She was brilliant, serious, the daughter of a famous revolutionary hero. Her life was defined by this pledge to strive.
But their relationship was complicated. The source materials is pretty clear on this. She practiced free love.
She did. She believed it was a revolutionary duty to break bourgeois ideas about marriage. So she was with, as the text says, every one of the Liesma men.
And Karl, the leader, he was okay with this.
Publicly, ideologically, yes, he approved. But privately, the text says he harbored agonizing jealousy.
Wow. That's a huge internal conflict.
It's a massive fault line running right through the group. This rigid ideology clashing with basic, powerful human emotion. It shows you the kind of personal sacrifices the revolution demanded.
Okay, so who else? There's Joska Sokolov, the finagler.
The watchmaker, which of course means he had nimble, precise hands, perfect for being the group's main thief, their X-man. He specialized in jewelry.
He was the one who worked with their fence, Leon Baron.
Exactly. Joska had a lame leg. Peter called him a limping golem, but he was critical to their funding. For him, it was simple. We steal this, we buy guns for Russia. It was purely practical.
And in total contrast to that, you have Jacob Peters, the pistol.
The pure hothead, the fanatic. For him, there was only permanent conflict. He was the one always pushing for more violence, more action.
And his fanaticism came from a place of deep trauma.
Horrific trauma. He'd been tortured by the Okhrana, the Tsar's secret police. They'd used pliers on his fingernails. He carried those scars, physical and mental, and they fueled him. He sent all his share of the money back to Russia, barely ate, a true believer.
And finally, Peter the painter. Peter Piakow.
The outsider, the artist. He was hired to paint backdrops for their anarchist plays and, ironically, to demonstrate how to make bombs.
But he's the one filled with doubt.
Constant churning doubt. He didn't find comfort in ideology. He found it in art, in Cézanne, in Manet. He hated how everything, even engineering, always turned into politics. He was already feeling that plunge of ice water in his stomach long before things went wrong.
So you have this powder keg of a group full of trauma, jealousy, and conflicting ideals, and they're about to light the fuse.
And that fuse is the plan for the Houndsditch jewelers.
So while Peter's having this crisis of faith, the group is zeroing in on a huge score.
The biggest yet. Joska, the jewelry expert, brings the plan to Karl. H.S. Harris Jewelers, 119 Houndsditch.
And this wasn't just any jewelry shop.
No, the intel suggested a massive haul. Gold, Romanov necklaces. There was even a rumor of a lost Fabergé egg. This was the score that would fund a major arms shipment back home.
So Karl, the leader, he shifts gears. He goes from being an ideologue to an engineer.
Completely. He's suddenly obsessed with the practicalities. How thick is the safe? How stable are the floorboards? It's all about the nuts and bolts of the robbery.
But just as this plan is coming together, Peter comes back to London.
He does. He's been in France trying to escape it all, and he comes back specifically to challenge Karl. He's haunted by a recent robbery that went wrong, the Tottenham incident.
Where people died.
4 people, a little boy, a policeman, 2 of their own. Peter confronts Karl and asks, is any of this working? Is this violence just
useless? And Karl just shuts him down.
Calls it a mood. He says he can't afford a philosophical crisis right now. He's too busy managing everything, making sure the money is actually buying guns. He needs everyone focused.
And this is where Rivka gets pulled into the center of things.
Right. Karl needs a couple to rent the flat right above the jewelers as cover. So Rivka, using the name Shirte Leva, poses as the wife of another member, Max Smaller.
And her instructions are simple?
Very simple. Don't speak English. Keep quiet. And, as Karl tells her, sit upstairs till we finish, lump or no lump.
Yeah.
She's a pawn. And she has no idea what she's really enabling.
But even with all this tension, there's this one moment of connection between her and Peter.
A really pivotal moment. They go to an art gallery, the Grafton Galleries, to see the post-impressionists.
And Peter's totally absorbed by the art, by the technique.
He loves the world haze in Seurat, the uncertainty in Cézanne. It mirrors his own dissolving sense of self. But Rivka, she's not looking at the brushstrokes.
She's looking at one painting in particular.
Manet's a bar at the Folies Bergère. She sees the red-haired waitress totally isolated in the middle of this glittering party, and she tells Peter, that's me.
She sees herself in the painting, the invisible waitress.
Exactly. And this shared moment of vulnerability, it just explodes. A man nearby laughs at a Cézanne portrait, calls the woman in it ugly, and Peter just loses it.
He confronts the man.
He shouts at him, you get a shock from this. Good. He's defending this revolutionary way of seeing the world against this smug, bourgeois certainty. And later, he sums up that whole feeling to Rivka in just 3 words.
A bomb blows up.
A bomb blows up. It's his entire internal conflict right there. Even Karl, the pragmatic leader, was feeling the pressure. The sources reveal he had this private daydream.
Of a normal life.
A completely normal life. He imagined being Jack Martin, a chemical engineer in Pennsylvania, eating pork chops with Nina. No bombs, no revolution.
But he doesn't take it.
He chooses the action. He chooses the uncertain future of the revolution over the fantasy of a stable life. And with that choice, the plan is locked in.
So, the night of the robbery, how did they actually plan to do it?
Well, the geography was key. The back of the jeweler's opened onto a yard with a communal privy. You know, the toilets for the flats above?
Not exactly
The
glamorous.
lowest, filthiest place, as the source calls it. And that's where Jacob Peters and Max Smuller started tunneling from, right into the back wall of the shop.
And Jacob Peters, the pistol, he embraced this.
Oh, he loved it. He saw himself as a soldier of the latrine. Every swing of the crowbar was, for him, a revolutionary act, making the gold theirs.
And Max was the technical guy.
Max had the oxygen torch to cut the safe. He even had one of Yuska's special clock regulators to measure how much gas he had left. It's the strange mix of, high-tech tools and brute force.
But all that digging, it made noise.
A lot of noise. It's late on a Friday night, the beginning of the Sabbath. A neighbor, Mr. Wheel, hears it. He thinks it's a plumber, which is odd on Shabbos, so he reports it.
And that's when the police show up.
First, just a young constable, P.C. Piper. Then reinforcements arrive, including a Sergeant Bentley. And Bentley, he takes charge, thinking it's just a routine burglary check.
And he pushes the door open.
And is met with immediate, savage gunfire. The room just explodes. Bullets hit him, hit the constable behind him. It's absolute chaos.
This wasn't a surrender. This was a firefight.
They were determined to shoot their way to freedom. The toll on the police was just devastating. 2 sergeants and a constable were killed. Another's leg was shattered.
And the press, the police, they immediately framed this.
Instantly. This is the work of the alien criminal. This is how they operate. It wasn't a political act in their eyes. It was an existential threat from foreigners.
And in the middle of all that chaos, Carl, the leader, is shot.
Fatally wounded in the back. The group scatters, carrying him to a flat on Grove Street. He actually gives a false name to the doctor before he dies.
And the fallout for everyone else is immediate. Rivka loses her jobs.
Instantly. The shopkeepers are terrified of the police attention. Nina, the ideologue, she goes into full self-preservation mode.
She's arranging morphine for Carl, but at the same time,
She's erasing herself, burning her clothes, dyeing her hair, burying her valuables. She is preparing to disappear.
while Rivka, she faces the full force of the state.
She's arrested, taken to Holloway Prison, and they are desperate to get information from her.
They beat her.
Kicked in the ribs, slapped, and when she goes on a hunger strike, a political act, they respond with force-feeding.
And the description of that is just harrowing.
It is a metal wedge forced into her mouth, a rubber tube shoved down her throat. It wasn't about feeding her. It was about breaking her. Punishment.
And that experience changes her.
Profoundly. She goes in as a pawn and she comes out a fighter. Her political awakening didn't come from a book. It came from the brutal physical reality of state power.
So Carl's dead, the police are dead, and the biggest manhunt in London's history is on.
A complete frenzy. The remaining core of the group, Fritz, Yuska, and Peter, they go to ground at a house on Havering Street near Sydney Street.
But they're betrayed.
By one of their own, a young musician from the anarchist parties, Nicholas Tomakov. He identifies them to the police to save his own skin, to prove he's not of Liesma.
Which leads directly to the siege of Sydney Street.
January 3rd, 1911. A moment that becomes iconic. Fritz and Yuska are trapped inside, and Fritz is convinced they can't surrender. He says the police will just gun us down to make a point.
To show they have power over foreigners.
Exactly. To nail their hides to the king's wall, as he puts it.
And the scale of the police response is unprecedented.
For the first time, troops are deployed in London against criminals. And then, most famously, the Home Secretary himself arrives on the scene.
Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill taking charge. This wasn't just a police operation anymore. It was a political spectacle.
The house is just bombarded with bullets.
A hailstorm of bullets. And Yoska the finagler, the limping golem, he's killed instantly. A single round through the forehead. Fritz keeps fighting, alone. He fires until his guns are empty and dies in the fire that engulfs the building. But crucially, the source notes his body was never identified among the wreckage. Nor was Peter's.
Because Peter was already gone.
He chose flight. He'd already shaved his beard, creating a pre-revolutionary face.
Yeah.
He told Fritz a local uprising was madness, that he'd die of loneliness or a brick in the head. Peter chose to escape alone.
And his lifeline is the ultimate double agent, Perelman.
Perelman, who had already collected the 500-pound reward from the
A
police.
huge amount of money then.
A fortune. And at the same time, he arranges one last meeting for Peter and Rivka at the Pavilion Theater.
Rivka sees his wanted poster there. Gitter Pieko, murderer.
She sees it, and she writes this coded note in Yiddish for Perelman. Fun Mirzu, PV, avec, from me to P-ware, away.
And their final meeting is, it's desperate.
He's broken his knee getting in, he's bleeding, and he's just consumed by guilt. He tells her, it would be a good thing if they caught me. Did I rob people because I'm a thief? Kill them because I'm a murderer?
He's lost the plot. He doesn't know who he is anymore.
And Rivka, who's been performing as Anna Southam, the Stepney songbird, wearing a blonde wig to blend in, she rips it off for him. She tries to bring him back to her father's simple quest for dignity. And she tells him she only wants to live, because then I'll be with you.
And from there, their fates and the fates of the others just spiral out.
The long shadow. Peter the painter vanishes in the shimmer of heat and smoke from the siege, becomes a legend. Rumors of him in Australia, New York. The most persistent one is that he died in a Soviet gulag in 1949. But no one ever knew for sure.
Jacob Peters, the pistol, has the most shocking trajectory.
The most ironic, perhaps. He goes back to Russia, becomes a high-ranking official in the Bolsheviks, and then deputy chairman of the Cheka.
The secret police. The Bolshevik secret police.
The very thing he fought against. The man tortured by the Okhrana becomes an agent of the Red Terror, signing hundreds of death sentences himself.
A hero of October.
Until he wasn't. The system he helped build the revolution, it devours him. He's purged from the party and executed by a firing squad in 1938.
What about the others? Rosie Trishchansky.
She suffered a complete mental breakdown, was confined as a pauper lunatic, and eventually deported. Just another piece of administrative cruelty.
But Rivka and Peter, they made it.
They survived. Together, they became a respectable English couple, Edward and Anna Burston. He was a teacher, a taxpayer, a life of quiet self-control. The only trace of his past was that he loved photography but would never be in the pictures himself, always the observer. To be there and not there in the same instant.
So what this deep dive really lays bare is this profound split, isn't it? You have these fervent political ideals on one side.
And on the other, the brutal reality of what they did, the criminal violence. They traded the tyranny of the Tsar for a kind of terrorism of their own.
And in the end, they just became this perfect propaganda tool for the British state, the ultimate scary story of the alien criminal.
The cost of their revolutionary logic was total. Karl, Joska, Jacob, their ideals were just consumed by the means they used to try and achieve them.
And Peter's final act wasn't revolution. It was disappearance. It was control. He traded that storm in the blood for a quiet, fearful, normal life.
And that's what forces you to weigh these two fates. You have Jacob Peters, the true believer, who rises to become a monster for his cause, only to be executed by that same cause. The revolution eating its own.
And then you have Peter Pietko.
So was his disappearance, his life as Edward Burston, teacher and taxpayer, was that the only real escape from that unending storm in the blood, or was it just a different kind of exile, a lifelong self-imposed prison of hiding from your own history?
A question of whether freedom founded on violence is ever really freedom at all. Something for you to think about. Until next time.